Today we are talking about artificial intelligence versus the real estate agent, and will robots replace realtors? I know ChatGPT seems to be the hot topic today with what new technology is rolling out, and I will say this. When I first found out about ChatGPT, I thought to myself, well great, now I can start a blog. Who cares? And then I kept hearing about it and I kept hearing about it. And then I finally started to think of how I could apply it to my business. And I will honestly admit that in literally the snap of my fingers, I managed to save 20 hours per week between myself and my staff. And that was instant. Since that time, I've been continuing to roll out new applications for artificial intelligence that have totally revamped my lead generation strategy, my customer service strategy, and we are just getting started. I believe that artificial intelligence today is similar to like when I grew up and Windows 95 hit the scene, and that was when finally the personal computer became popular. Now, believe it or not, back then it took two people at least to carry in the computer from the vehicle to the house, and you remember thinking to yourself, why do we need a computer in our house? That's for nerds. Only nerds know how to use computers. And who needs email? What a joke that is. And I still remember that it was the dial-up internet, and it took forever just to get online, and if somebody picked up the phone, it would knock you off the internet. And we had to take turns using the internet, and you could only use it for 20 minutes or an hour at a time until it was somebody else's turn. Absolute crazy, ridiculous times, but to think how far we've come, and to look back then to think that people didn't think we needed it at that time. So now with artificial intelligence, I look at this and think, for those people that are 10 steps ahead of me already, they're going to start implementing artificial intelligence in the way that they do business. They're going to be 100 steps ahead. But what about those people that are 10 steps behind, looking forward to where I am? And what about those people that are in the same position than me or 10 steps ahead that decide not to implement artificial intelligence as a component of what they do? I know this might seem a little bit crazy, a little bit ridiculous, but this is where things are going. We've all been surprised as to what's happened with artificial intelligence, but it is a big deal. So I know a lot of people might be scared for what artificial intelligence is going to do, and some people are really, really excited about artificial intelligence. But what I actually did here was I asked ChatGPT how artificial intelligence could potentially replace realtors. So here's what it said. Property valuation. AI algorithms could analyze local data on property sales and rental prices to accurately determine the value of a property, eliminating the needs for appraisals by human realtors. Well, we've seen that Zillow is already doing that, and how good of a job are they doing? Sometimes it works well, sometimes not so well. Property search. AI-powered property search engines could help buyers find properties that match their preferences using machine learning to refine search results based on previous searches and interactions. So because these robots may have access to all of our data, they might be able to determine better what we want and need more than we already know, which, I mean, hey, there might be some legitimacy to that. We already see Google, as soon as we talk about something or think about something, automatically we get a Google ad or a Facebook ad for something that is relevant to that. So that's kind of already happening. And then in real estate, if this begins to happen more and more, that is something that could take place. Virtual property tours. With the help of virtual reality and 3D modeling, AI-powered virtual tours could give buyers a realistic sense of a property without the need for in-person visits. Now, I really like this one because if you think about it, if you were to use those artificial reality goggles and you were to walk into a spec home or a custom home, new home build that doesn't currently exist yet, how cool would that be to experience a home that you want to build before you actually pull the trigger and decide to build it? Now, granted, even on the sense of you doing that for an existing property, I think that that would be a great tool and a great advantage to save you going to the home, and seeing it in person. But there are going to be little nuances like a crack in the drywall or a crack in the basement that you might not see with virtual reality goggles or a virtual tour, that the property has a certain smell to it, that when you don't see that, until you go to the property, or you really see the neighborhood, the barking dog in the neighbor's yard, or whatever it might be. For automated contract generation, AI could help generate contracts and agreements between buyers and sellers, reducing the need for human input and ensuring accuracy and consistency. Now, however that might be true, that's not even necessarily the place of a realtor. Like, we have forms in place, but you're probably still going to want to have a lawyer look at it, I would think, in most cases. But although they could, I suppose, for commercial transactions, help you generate contracts that don't already exist for you. But again, I think you'd still want to have a lawyer look at that type of thing. Although I will say, apparently ChatGPT is very good at passing the lawyer's exam, so figure that one out. Predictive analytics. Machine learning algorithms could help predict market trends and identify properties that are likely to increase in value, helping buyers make informed decisions. I'm not going to comment too much on that. I mean, there is some relevance to that, but as for statistics in general, I always like real-time data. I always like unique perspectives based on experience. But what I have noticed with ChatGPT is it will spit out information so quickly that you can actually use it to brainstorm. Like, you'll ask it to give you 10 ideas, and then you pick out one that's relevant and say, give me 10 more ideas on this topic. You pick out one or two more, give me 10 more ideas. And it helps you brainstorm, and it helps you rethink of things that you already know that you forgot you know. So it's less, you don't have to remember everything all the time, because you can help jog your own mind along similar common concepts in your industry with using this tool. Personalized recommendations. AI-powered chatbots could assist buyers in finding properties that match their specific needs and preferences, providing personalized recommendations and advice. Now, here's what I do like with this thought. AI-powered chatbots. So we've all been to those websites or property search websites where you get the little customer service person who asks you a question, and then, or you ask it a question, and then it spits out some sort of frequently asked question that's nothing at all related to what you're asking. And so it's not until you say, please let me speak to a service representative, and then they get back to you within 5 to 10 minutes. And by that time, you're long gone out the door doing something totally, completely different. But now, if you had a chatbot at a real estate search website that actually gave you responses that are as good or the same as what ChatGPT would give you, but it's backed up with all of the data that's specifically relevant to what's happening in the real estate market, what's available in the real estate market today, what's happening with trends in the real estate market, how valuable would that tool be? My question is, how long will it be until that is mainstream? I think that's a big deal. Transaction management. Smart contract powered by blockchain technology could automate the entire transaction process from offer acceptance to closing, reducing the need for human intervention. Now, I will admit I maybe don't completely understand what they are saying here, but smart contract powered by blockchain technology. Isn't that Bitcoin? I don't completely understand that, to be honest. But I suppose that AI could help create checklists to make sure that everything in the transaction takes place, like a home inspection, etc. I would think that you'd have to have a pretty in-depth hardware system to be able to identify potential defects with a home in order to really replace some parts of the key elements of the real estate transaction. Although when it comes to the documents itself, making sure everything is in place and on time, there definitely is some automation I could see happening that helps create better customer service using AI. But again, to replace a realtor, I'm not 100% sure on that one. Mortgage advice. AI-powered mortgage advisors could help buyers find the best mortgage options based on their financial situation, credit history, and other factors. Now, this one I do like. So when you submit your mortgage documents, they've got to talk to the underwriter. The underwriter needs to look at all of your files. And so could you imagine where it takes a long time in some files to get an answer back from a mortgage broker based on a number of different factors? But imagine if you could input all of that data into a system just like ChatGPT, and they could spit out all of that information instantly and be like, here's 10 reasons why this person is a good candidate and a couple reasons why they might not be. And then you might just say, as the underwriter, you might just say, I just want the personal story to back up what's going on with this scenario to help me make a decision. But this could definitely cut some time out of the actual process. 9, predictive maintenance. AI-powered sensors and analytics could monitor and predict maintenance needs for properties, alerting owners and tenants to potential issues before before they become major problems. This is what I'd mentioned before. You'd have to have some pretty good hardware to be able to do this, but I think this would be a big deal for anybody to, deferred maintenance to make sure that that doesn't happen, but also, to be able to predict what's going on with the house. If there is issues with the roof, with the attic, with all of the heating and cooling systems, the insulation of the house, etc., that would be a cool tool. And there are some tools out there right now that home inspectors already do use, but to add AI to the actual software, I think would be a big deal. Market analysis, as we kind of mentioned, AI-powered market analysis tools could help real estate investors and developers identify the best areas to invest in based on factors such as population growth, housing demand, and economic indicators. Now, one thing I will say about ChatGPT is it doesn't give you real-time data, and I really wish that it did, because if you could tell exactly what's happening in the market right now based on currently available statistics and data, it would be super powerful. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of data that ChatGPT does not have access to that, if it did, would be a lot more powerful. One of which would be, let's say, the MLS information altogether. Another one could potentially be access to, well, copyrighted information. But if you could take your chatbot, pay for a subscription service, let's say to Blinkist as an example of book summaries, and if you could attach that information to, or Spotify, or any of these other platforms that are paid platforms, if you could attach this ChatGPT service to these other, data sources, it could be that much more powerful. Now, here's 10 reasons why AI may not fully replace human realtors. And this is, again, information spit out from ChatGPT. Now, it says emotional intelligence. Human realtors are able to read and respond to emotions, building trust with clients, and providing a more personalized experience. Well, we know that this is true. And people are people. Sometimes we need to save them from themselves. Sometimes we need to speak logic into the equation, and sometimes we need to help the client remove emotion from the equation. Local knowledge. Realtors who have lived and worked in a particular area for a long time have a deep understanding of the local property market, which can be difficult for AI algorithms to replicate. For example, there's an area in Saskatoon where the properties are close to the riverbank, and the geological structure underneath is potentially compromised, or at least it's somewhat of a common knowledge that there's certain areas close to the river in town that is the case. And so a local real estate agent might know something like that a robot perhaps might not. Negotiation. The art of negotiation is a skill that requires human intuition and experience. AI may not be able to understand the nuances of a negotiation or read body language in the same way that humans can. This is a big deal, and it's not until you start to break down what happens during a negotiation, and as an experienced real estate agent, you pick up on this stuff over time, but when you do start to break it down, you're like, wow, I forgot that I knew all that stuff. You just learn it as you go, and it is a big valuable resource. That's a big reason why people hire us. Next, complex property transactions. Some property transactions involve complex legal and financial arrangements that may require human expertise to navigate, which is true because every scenario is different. And if there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, that's a lot of data for a robot to pick up. And if there is missing data, they're going to spit out information, not knowing that they might be missing information, as an example. Personal touch. The buying and selling of property is often an emotional experience, as I'd mentioned, and many clients value the personal touch that a human realtor can provide it. It helps you have comfort so people can trust the process a little bit more. Unique properties. Some properties are one of a kind and require a human touch to market and sell effectively. This is why the Zillow, property valuation tool doesn't always work super well, because I had an appraisal done on a property, and the appraisal came in at, I think, $650,000 because they based it on price per square foot, but it was an oddball property. It had a huge addition on the front, which was like an office addition, and then the basement was smaller than the main floor, and it only had a unique number of bedrooms, and so it was a very eccentric style of home, and it ended up selling for like $485,000. Now, it could easily get skewed one way or the other based on simple data analytics, but there's a lot of different things that are unique scenarios that I think you have to be able to predict who's going going to buy that property, what the buyer pool is, and some of those intricacies that it'd be a lot more difficult to pick up on. Although I will say there are also things that are easily overlooked by the human eye that could be picked up with analytics. So it kind of works both ways, which I think is the reason why it's a super valuable tool. Unforeseen events. Real estate transactions can be affected by unforeseen events such as changes in the economy or natural disasters. Human realtors can adapt to these changing circumstances more easily than AI algorithms. Well, I mean, that one's somewhat kind of obvious, I guess you could say. But yes, I mean, you know, we'd be able to adapt. That's a bit of a rabbit hole off topic in some sense, but I guess that's a factor. Trust. Buying or selling a property is a significant event for most people, and many clients value the trust that is built between themselves and their realtor over time. This is very true. Although I will also argue that you could grow to trust a robot, which is part of the problem because ChatGPT does sometimes give you answers that are false, and it's not until you cross-check them or ask it again and they'll be actually sorry, you know, I cross-checked the data again and I gave you false information. Oops, you know, and I joke about this and say, well, what if an engineer was building blueprints using ChatGPT and found out, oops, actually the structure of this project is not feasibly viable and actually it's gonna collapse, you know? So it's kind of like when it comes to science and information, sometimes it's good to double, triple cross-check, or how you have to have somebody that sort of, you know, is using the tool itself to make sure that there are not catastrophic errors, so to speak. Flexibility. Human realtors can provide a level of flexibility in terms of scheduling and availability that AI may not be able to replicate. Well, yes, I agree with that, but also, you think about it, ChatGPT is one robot brain that like millions of people are using all at the same time. So to me, that's a tremendous amount of flexibility in some sense. But I also do agree that getting properties opened, you know, getting into properties is a human, you know, at current time, it's a human thing. But you think of it, what if showing properties turned into like a vending machine where you could just tap your credit card at the front of the door and it would, you know, the door would open, you could look at the house, you could schedule your own appointment online directly. But, you know, of course, the big thing with realtors is we have criminal record checks. You know, we have a governing body that says what you can and can't do. So you don't just want people coming and going inside of your house if you're selling your house, of course. But it's a thought. Complex needs. Some clients may have complex needs that require human expertise, such as those with disabilities or language barriers, or those who require specialized property features. But I will say, ChatGPT probably speaks more languages than you do. So if you have somebody who doesn't speak your language, you could use ChatGPT, which is in a lot of ways more efficient than like Google Translate, to easily have a conversation back and forth with somebody who doesn't speak your language. But complex needs requiring disabilities, etc. Yes, I think understanding those scenarios is going to be a lot easier. Here is some reasons why people do or don't like AI. And again, this is from ChatGPT. AI-powered tools provide convenience. Tools and services make our lives more convenient by automating tasks, providing suggestions, and reducing the need for human input. For example, virtual assistants such as Siri and Alexa can help us set reminders, make appointments, and answer questions without the need to manually input information for search or answers. So you know how you can ask Siri in your car, hey, can you please text this person? Well, imagine if you could just ask it, if you had ChatGPT instead of Siri, it would be a lot more powerful AI tool. And I think that's where things are going, that you don't even have to type it in. Efficiency. AI algorithms are often able to process large amounts of data quickly and accurately, making them ideal for such tasks as data analysis, language translation, and image recognition. This can save time and resources and help us to make more informed decisions. So apparently the updated GPT-4 is able to recognize images. So you can take a picture of all the items in your fridge and say, hey, can you give me 10 options of what we could eat for supper today? And it will recognize what's in your fridge and be like, boom. You'd be like, can I have recipes for all of those as well, please? And it would be like, boom. It'd be like, excellent. Can you tell me which one's most popular? I'll have that. Right? So it's kind of cool what you can do with it. Personalization. AI-powered tools can provide personalized experiences, recommendations based on a user's preferences and behavior, creating a more engaging and relevant experience. This can be seen in platforms such as Netflix, Spotify, which use AI algorithms to suggest movies and music based on a user's viewing or listening history. So this is interesting. The whole topic of AI in general is something that has been here for quite a long time, but it's not until now that we see ChatGPT where there's a user-friendly complete option available to the public at mass, where all of a sudden it's a hot topic. You think, well, how much of this is already a part of our day-to-day lives that we maybe didn't even think to realize? Innovation. AI is the forefront of technological innovation, driving advances in fields such as healthcare, transportation, and entertainment. For example, AI-powered robots are being developed to perform tasks such as surgery and elder care, while autonomous vehicles are being tested to improve transportation safety and efficiency. We also know autonomous vehicles could also kill people, and it's inspiring to know that robot surgeon is going to make less errors and they can make very intricate movements, but they can also make mistakes too. Like, I know humans can make mistakes, but if a robot makes a mistake, I feel like less apt to give them room for error. It's like, I would I would rather, I don't know, I like human error, but I mean, there's pros and cons obviously to both. Assistance. AI-powered tools can provide assistance and support in such areas as education, mental health, and personal finance, helping people to achieve their goals and improve their lives. For example, educational apps such as Duolingo and Khan Academy use AI algorithms to provide personalized learning experiences, while mental health chatbots such as Wobot and Wysa are designed to provide emotional support and guidance. Now, I did a little bit of, this popped up in some of my research to AI where people say, hey, I'm feeling down, can you help me? And which is interesting, and the AI will spit out something, you know, generic but supportive. And you think of it, if you don't have anybody to talk to, you go to a chatbot, you know, and they spit out something that is, you know, at least helpful in some way. Sometimes if you were just to call a hotline, you could be on hold waiting for somebody to respond. And then they ask you a whole bunch of questions where you might just be looking for some new perspective on something. But even if you were to simplify this thought, it's also been said that before you respond to, as an example, a nasty email or a nasty review, instead of responding in your own words, you could say, hey, ChatGPT, please give me a response to this that would be appropriate. And they will give you a very professional, well-worded response, because the robot doesn't get tied up with emotions. So instead of responding with negative emotion as an instinctive reaction, they could give you a very professional response. And here's why people don't like AI. Fear of job loss. Now, as we know, human beings, we don't like change. We are creatures of habit. Although we are also the most adaptable of the species that are out there available today. But without going too far down the rabbit hole of what AI might turn into, become conscious, let's not go sci-fi just yet. But fear of job loss is legit. But think of it. Back in the day, people were afraid when tractors came along and said, I plow the field with my own plow. That we're not going to need humans anymore. We have a tractor. Well, in some sense, you're like, well, AI is going to take jobs away, but it's also going to create jobs. And if you're one of those people that uses it as a tool, you're going to have a huge advantage over those people that don't implement it. One of the biggest concerns people have, it will replace human workers in many industries. Fear is particularly acute in industries such as manufacturing, where robots and automation have already begun to replace human workers, like factories. But who really wants those jobs anyways? It takes away the mundane is what it does. Lack of trust. People may also distrust AI because they don't fully understand how it works, how decisions are made. This lack of transparency can be particularly problematic in such areas of finance and healthcare, where AI algorithms are used to make important decisions. Well, that's legit. Bias and discrimination. AI algorithms can be biased and discriminatory, particularly if they are trained on data that is skewed or incomplete. This can lead to unfair treatment to certain groups of people, such as minorities or women. It was interesting because I was asking the ChatGPT to spit out different scenarios and stories of that might take place during a real estate transaction, and it kept giving me the same name for the realtor. I was like, tell me a story about a realtor. I was like, realtor named Sarah, realtor named Sarah. It just came up with the same name all the time, which I thought is interesting. And then I did notice some biases, and apparently, according to some of my research, that ChatGPT is more leaning left, which kind of makes sense because that's where society is right now. It's more left-wing than right-wing. But yeah, bias is definitely a concern. Loss of control. People may also be uncomfortable with the idea of ceding control to AI, particularly when it comes to decision making. This can be particularly problematic in areas such as national security, where AI algorithms may be used to make decisions that have far-reaching consequences. If you study Elon Musk's perspective on how dangerous AI could be, it's pretty doomsday. It's not overly exciting, but I mean, it's legit. It's just like any technology. You know, the airplane, one of the first uses of the airplane was for World War I. I mean, anytime new technology comes out, humans can weaponize it. So it's not necessarily the technology, it's who's using it and for what. But lack of empathy. Finally, people may dislike AI because it lacks the empathy and emotional intelligence of human beings. This can be particularly problematic in areas such as healthcare, where patients may want to interact with human, doctor, or a nurse rather than a robot or AI-powered system. Again, I don't think that you should replace humans with robots altogether. But for example, I was at Canadian Tire today and I was waiting in line, realizing that to do business with a human being who would scan the items, but yet there was a self-serve option. I just went direct to the self-serve because the lineup, they were taking too long. So I went to the self-serve, and then, but by the way, there was a lady waiting to scratch my receipt with a highlighter. I'm like, what? You're standing there waiting. Why don't you just come to one of these tills and serve me? So anyways, I go to the self-serve, and then when I'm done at the self-serve, I try to get out and she stops me. Oh, okay, so now you're helping me. She highlights my receipt. I go to the to walk through the door and my thing beeps. So she grabs my item and she puts it over the magnetic thing so that it doesn't beep when I walk out. And I just think to myself, for the amount of effort it took for you to do that, why didn't you just serve me in the first place? Just, that doesn't seem to make sense. But again, I guess if there was, 50 people in line, it might be a different scenario. But nonetheless, people still like to deal with people, which is true. So there you have it, folks. That's my 2 cents, 10 cents, and ChatGPT's 2 cents on what's happening. But there's a lot of uses for artificial intelligence, which I'm obviously excited about. I'm using a whole bunch, and if you want to know what I am doing with artificial intelligence to make myself more productive, feel free to comment down below or send me a message, reach out to me on Instagram. It's the same name on there. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on this video next.